Hello, my spooky friends. This is John, your host of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. And I'm just so lucky. I have Chinelle, who is a paranormal investigator on a team, I should say, Elite Vixen. I love that name. Paranormal investigators. Welcome. Chinelle, glad to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it is definitely my pleasure because, again, I've had a number of paranormal investigators on. I love your stories. You always have a different way of looking at things or investigating. And I admit, I know I'll say this during the episode. Mm-hmm. I'm a pretty big guy, but if I saw a ghost, I would scream like a little girl and run. And Chinelle and your team would have to chase me and say, John, it's okay. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, and we would. We would.
Okay. All right. I just can see it now. Chanel going, he'll be okay. Just let him.
Yeah, he'll be all right. Yeah.
So, Chanel, tell me a little bit about yourself and Elite Vixen, a little bit about your team.
Well, so my interest in the paranormal began when we could honestly say when I was real little. But really when I was about 17, 18 years old. So I had moved into like my dad's house. So my dad's house is in York, Pennsylvania, and it was built in like the 1850s, 70s, something in around there.
Love it.
And so my family has been the second family to own the house. That's it. And so like growing up, I always would get like these really weird feelings and didn't understand and, would just be creeped out for no reason, even though it was a place very, very familiar to myself. Mm-hmm. Then when I was about 17, I actually moved in with him. And that's when like I really started to really notice, what was going on. Mm. And I asked my dad, I was like, just randomly, I was like, Dad, is our house haunted? And, his response to me, he was like, well, I'm going to tell you the same thing my mother told me. You don't mess with them, they're not going to mess with you. Mm. I was like, oh, I was like floored, this kid that was like, oh my gosh. So that's really when my interest started. And I've been a field investigator now for almost 6 years. I had the opportunity to break into the field a lot sooner than 6 years ago. But, I got kids and all the things. So, life kind of took precedence over that. But yeah, so Samantha and we started Elite Vixen Paranormal in 2018, November 2018. We're going on 6 years.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because a lot of paranormal teams don't last that long.
No,
they split or, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's me, Samantha, and then there's a total of 10 of us right now.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa.
big team.
I've seen, before we get to this, can you go back, when you were a little girl, Chinelle, did you ever describe a paranormal experience you had where you're like, okay, there's something in this house, there's something going on. Do you remember one?
Well, like I said, before I really realized, it was just overall just a really like eerie type creepy feeling, always feeling like I was being watched, hearing things, but my dad just like chalking it up to, oh, well, that's the neighbors or that's the house settling, and the house is way settled, right? So it wasn't, like I said, until I got a little bit older. And the biggest thing that happened to me was I can't remember if I had just turned 18 or right around the time of my 18th birthday. I was talking on the phone to like my boyfriend at the time. Sure. And so my bedroom at my dad's house, I still have the same bedroom when I go and visit, was actually my grandmother's bedroom. And my grandmother passed away in that bedroom, in the same bed. It's like legit. And so I was talking on the phone to him and like the temperature in the room had just like plummeted and I could literally see my breath.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, like what's going on? So I go downstairs and I'm like, keep in mind, my dad and I, we'd already had the conversation about, is this the house haunted, right? So I go downstairs and I was like, Dad, because he hadn't turned the heat on yet. So I thought it was like the heat.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, Dad, you got to turn the heat on. Like I can see my breath in my bedroom. And he's like, no, you can't. I'm like, yes, I can. So I go up there and I'm still on the phone at this point in time. And like, I'm just like blowing and seeing my breath. As soon as my dad hit the landing upstairs, I could no longer see my breath.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh. You want to talk about 18-year-old girl? My daddy slept in my bed with me that night because I was terrified.
Sure. Yeah.
So scared. But that's
Oh,
like one of the biggest things. But there's so many stories from my house growing up, you know?
yeah. So I always love those stories. Here's the thing. How could you live? I have to ask this question. How could you live in a haunted house and get any sleep? Like, seriously.
I mean, so it got to the point with me, like, because once I realized what was going on, I really would just like, I would just sit there and just listen and just know. Like, I would hear footsteps going up and down the stairs when it was just me in the house by myself, you know, hearing doors opening and closing. I mean, the house
Yeah.
I live in now is haunted. And so you just kind of get used to it. And
Totally.
I think that the difference comes with like being familiar with the spirits
Sure.
and knowing the spirits, you know.
Mhm.
So, like, even being here when I'm home alone and I could hear the spirit upstairs running around, making all kinds of racket, you know, occasionally he'd get on my nerves and I got to yell at him and tell
Yeah.
him to stop.
Right.
But, you know, I feel like, especially being here, like, he's attached to this land. So he's been here a lot longer than I have.
Hmm.
So we're comfortable with each other, and he likes to make some noise to let me know that he's around.
Yeah. And do you know if it's a spirit of an older man, a boy? What do you think the spirit is?
I believe so. There's a whole story. I went down a whole rabbit trail with figuring
Okay.
out about the spirit here in my house.
Yeah.
So I believe that it is a member of the family that originally owned this plot of land
Yeah.
back in pre-Civil War, because I'm in Murfreesboro, Tennessee now.
Okay.
So pre-Civil War, there's a family that owned it, and I can't say the name because then I'm going to tell people basically where I live.
Yeah. No. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, but so I'd known that there was a spirit here, and like he would just like my husband and I, we'd be sitting here watching movies, and we could see him like shadows in the background in the kitchen,
Wow.
all the noise upstairs. He likes to hang out upstairs.
Yeah.
And so I got curious. Now, I don't recommend this because I don't ever recommend investigating your own house.
Hmm.
But I busted out my dowsing rods and I was like, I need to know.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
and I had always gotten the name Jim. Like, it was just something that came to my mind, you know, and so I finally asked and got confirmation of that. Then I did some like digging, you know, like on like the history of the land, all of that history of Murfreesboro, and learned there was a gentleman by the name of James that was one of the original people that originally got the like plot of land. So I was like, oh, okay. So the even cooler part of that is when I had the dowsing rods, I asked if it was like a member of the family
Oh,
or like somebody I was related to, and they said
sure.
yes.
Oh.
So I asked all of the surnames related to me and my biology.
Yeah.
And it was a couple months later, and I was like, it was still kind of bothering me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I got to dig in and researching my husband's name. And so his family is related to this family because they intermarried in Kentucky
Okay.
a long time ago. So that's where
Sure.
the relation came in.
Oh, interesting.
That's so
That's really
interesting.
that is super interesting. I'm a big lover of history, so I just
Same.
love when people find that out. Let me back up for a second. Why not investigate your own house? Why is that a no-no? Or maybe not the greatest thing to do?
Because, I mean, you really just don't, first off, really truly know what you're dealing with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it does come down to comfortability. You get to know them, they get to know you, but you also kind of open your own house
Yeah.
to not necessarily being a portal. I don't want to use that term,
Sure.
but you open your own house up. And like for me, like I have kids, so I'm not putting my kids in danger.
Right.
So it's just
Exactly.
something that I personally don't kind of practice and like
Yeah.
really don't promote, but I don't judge other people that do that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Sure. Are you sensitive, or anyone on your team sensitive?
Yes.
Meaning, I don't mean like a
Mhm.
medium, but maybe they are a medium. Anybody on
A
your team
lot.
like that?
Yeah, a lot of us have abilities. So I identify as an intuitive empath.
Oh, what's that?
So an intuitive empath, I'm able to remember when I said like the name Jim, like that just came to me and it would just come to me over and over again, just
Sure.
in my mind, Jim. I also tend to just know things. Like we had some friends that we were investigating with a couple weeks ago, and so me and my one friend, we went together, and then the guys, they went together.
Yeah.
And I had just come out of it and I was like, don't leave him at Buc-ee's. And they're like, how did you know we went to Buc-ee's? And I was like, I don't just be knowing things sometimes.
Nice.
So that's me. I identify as an intuitive empath. I can
Uh,
also pick up on like the emotions of the spirits,
Ooh,
and
very
things
nice.
like that, especially in
Yeah.
like if I'm doing like Estes method, which I
Yes.
can explain if you need me to.
Yes.
Um,
I know about the Estes method, but
mhm.
please explain that again because, no offense, I think this is crazy because I've heard so many of my paranormal investigators tell me during that method they have seen very troubling things or
Yes.
heard or something. So,
hmm
why don't you relate that to my audience? Tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I can. So I was at the Scott County Jail, and this was, excuse me, in October 2022.
Yeah.
2022? Yeah, 2022. I was
Yeah.
in the Scott County Jail in Scott County, Tennessee,
Mm.
and I was on Estes method.
Uh-huh.
And I kept getting like these two voices. So one of them was a female coming through, and she was very quiet and very soft spoken.
Yeah.
The other was a male voice that was not very nice sounding.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's the only time I've ever been affected during an Estes method,
Yeah.
because I could feel her emotion and her fear and like how scared she was.
Yeah.
And then I could hear this man in the background just being like not very nice and
Mm.
like taking her over and silencing her.
Oh,
And
God.
I remember looking at my friend Vicky, and I was like I pulled the headphones off, the blindfold off, and I was like, I got to get out of the jail. And
Yeah.
she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm about to cry. And I did. I walked out the jail and
Mm-hmm.
had to like I was okay because
Yeah.
consciously I knew what I was doing and what was
Yeah.
happening.
Right.
But I had to get out of there. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I gotta stop this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of the things about being an empath. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
You know, it's really funny. I always tell people, my guests, this, the people I know, my mom, she passed away 3 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
my mom, and she was not judgmental. She was a lovely woman. Like, if you meet her, you'd be her friend for life. She's one of those
Yeah.
people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She could tell whether a person's good or bad by just meeting them.
Mm-hmm.
And she was never wrong. She
Yeah.
passed a gift to me. And not in a judgmental, and like,
Right.
oh, that person's being a jerk or whatever. No, she could meet them, and like she'd meet my girlfriends, and she'd be like,
Mm-hmm. She'd be like,
nope,
that ain't the one for
yeah,
you.
that ain't the one for you. And I'd be like, Mom, what the hell, Bob? Yeah, we started dating,
Right.
and she was right. And then she'd meet like my bosses, or she'd meet just some
Mm-hmm.
of my ex friends, and she'd be like, nope. And I have that gift too. And my wife
Mm-hmm.
always cracks up because I'll be like, nope, that person, honey, don't hang around with that person, at work or whatever. And she's like, stop being so judgmental. But I'm always right. And then my wife hates
Yeah.
me. She goes, oh, God, you're right again. I don't think I'm
Mm-hmm.
an empath or anything. It's just this weird feeling. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just, right? You can't
Yeah.
describe it. It's just you have it or you don't, kind of one of those things.
Right. And I totally understand because I had the same ability.
Mm.
So I'm one of those people, I'm non-judgmental. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love everybody until like
yeah.
I don't have a reason to.
Same with
But
me.
if I meet somebody off the rip and I don't like them, I
Mm-hmm.
have been right every time. Every single time.
Me and you, Chinelle, we should have a show. We should just set up a
We
show, be
should.
like, have people come and be like, okay, you want to date this person? We just look at each other. No, move.
Nope.
So let me back up here with your house. I have another question I always ask is because I get this a lot of times where people
Mhm.
have experience in their bathrooms, like in the shower. So, for
Mhm.
example, I've had paranormal investigators on, and they said they've been in the shower and they hear voices,
Mhm.
or they come out of the shower and they're and you're so vulnerable, right? Like, you're
Right,
in
you
the
are. Yeah.
shower. And you come out of the shower and people have said they've been seen writing like their
Mhm.
medicine
The
cabinet
mirror.
mirror
Yep.
or whatever. Have you ever experienced that at all? Or just a feeling where you just like, something's going on here. Maybe we should get out.
I haven't experienced that in this house, but I did experience it in my dad's house.
Okay. All right.
There would be, yeah, so there would just be times where like I knew that I was the only one in the house, but I wouldn't feel alone. You know what I'm saying? And you're right, like that vulnerability of getting out of the shower and feeling like somebody's here with me.
Right.
Now, never had any evidence. I can't remember ever having any like writing on the bathroom mirror or anything like that, but just
Okay.
like that creepy feeling of not being alone when you should be,
Right. Exactly. And that to me is extremely vulnerable. So let's turn to some of your methods and how you investigate. So everyone does it differently. Tell me about, I'm going to start you from kind of like square one. So you're going into, I'm just going to use a house. Okay. You're going into a house you believe is haunted. How do you guys do that? Do you have some people, they say they address the house. They're like, hey, I'm Chinelle. I wanted to let you know you spirits in here. We're going to be investigating tonight. Please don't take it personally. If you want us to leave, give us a sign, whatever. How does you and your team do that when you start at a new place and you start a new investigation? Take me through that.
Yeah. So what we do is, we go through like the equipment, like we set up our equipment, especially if we're setting up our DVR. We're going to do that first, right? Before we even introduce ourselves or anything.
Okay.
But once we've got like everything kind of set up, then we open the house or open the location where it's exactly how you say. We introduce ourselves. We let them know we're not here to, be like malicious. We're here. We just want to learn a little bit about them. We ask, of course, one of our very first questions that we'll do on like when running like a EVP session when we first open up the house is there anyone here with us? Very like what I think is kind of standard.
Sure.
And we'll just go from there. And before we leave, we make sure that we thank them.
Nice.
And we tell them they got to stay. They can't come home with us, because we've had that happen a time or two.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's basically how we started out.
So now let's talk about your equipment. And again, Chinelle, we talked offline here. If you could kind of describe your equipment, what you have, and then for some of my new audience who may like, I have no idea what Chinelle is talking about. Can you please like define it for my audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course we have our DVR system, which has the night mode on it, like most, DVRs do. And that way then it can possibly see things that we can't see, right? And, that way then also we don't have to have like the lights and it can still see. We have an 8-channel Night Owl DVR system.
Nice.
That's the brand. And then, gosh, we have all kinds of equipment. So we, of course,
What
have,
mostly you typically use, though? What on most investigations?
So I personally am a big fan of voice recorders. And I like the trigger items. Some people are like, oh, I just prefer just to use my cell phone and a voice recorder. For me, I like the trigger items. I like to see the interaction with the little gadgets. So we have like a REM pod, which uses the same technology as, and I can't ever think of it, but like that musical instrument from the 80s, where if you get close to it, it makes a sound, right?
Yeah.
And then it has the different lights. It has like temperature gauge in it and things like that. So I love a good REM pod. We recently bought a Paranology's 360-degree periscope. It's our second one. Our first one that we had, she had a good life. She had a good life. So, but we were finally able, to replace it. And that, And the thing about a 360 periscope is it doesn't run off of like electromagnetic fields. It runs off of electrostatic. So it picks up different energy than like the REM pod or like the K2, which is also an EMF meter, an electromagnetic field meter. And so the periscope works just a little bit differently. And it's, got different colors that light up. It goes from like red. Yeah, basically the color of the rainbow. Yeah. So Periscope's really cool. You can get a lot of like interactions on that, you can ask it. We've had intelligent responses where we'll be like, hey, can you get near that thing and light it up to a specific color? And we've had that happen before.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's one of my favorite pieces of equipment, and I'm really excited that we were able to finally replace it. Because let me tell you what, when Paranologies was not in business, you could not find them anywhere. Nobody was selling them. They weren't on eBay, nothing.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But yeah, then I'm waiting on tripwires, which the tripwires, they are supposed to work off of EMF, and they're supposed to be able to like detect changes in like the electromagnetic field. And the theory behind a tripwire is something's walking, you can watch it walk.
Yeah.
Because
wow.
the lights light up. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, let's see. Oh, we just also recently ordered a customized music box, paranormal music box.
Ooh.
Yeah, that when something goes in its path. Oh, hold on. I'm going to mute just in case my TV cuts off. Or gets off of Netflix. I don't want it to make noise. But so, like, if anything breaks the path of the beam, it lights up.
Nice.
And it plays music.
Wow.
And yeah, cat balls also.
Yep.
They're one of my favorite pieces of equipment.
I love that. I see now
Love
again. You have different equipment from other people. I didn't hear the tripwires, the cat balls, and the REM pad, and everything standard. I guess.
Yeah.
Equipment to most people, digital video recorders. So let's get right to the fun stuff. In my opinion, the investigations. So let's start. Okay, my first question would be: have you ever gone? Maybe you or one of your teams gone into a location and gone, wow, this is dark. Like I'm feeling it right now. Tell me about that place and your investigation, how that went.
When you say dark, you mean like the energy is just like
dark, and like you walk in, like with you being empath and stuff like that, when you walk in and you're like, wow, it's heavy in here. Like, you know what I mean?
You can definitely, like, OSPH has that kind of feeling. Like, not only actually being dark, because that place is dark.
Okay, and where is this place?
Oh, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital.
Oh,
And,
hospitals. Yes.
Yeah, lots of just kind of like, especially on that third floor, that feeling is just very heavy and just very dark. We've been fortunate that we haven't run into like any kind of really, really negative energies that we know of, but you can just kind of feel it, and you can just, when something's like not right, or when a spirit, has left this life and not the best of ways. You know what I mean? Like you can just kind of feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, when you go in there, do you try to do you build up? Like, do you go into the hospital, and do you say, like, I'm going to pick a room, I'm going to do the Estes method with the blindfold and the covering over the ear? Or do you say, I'm just going to put a video recorder in here, or I'm going to put a digital recorder in here, and I'll come back in a little bit and see what I can get? What do you do as far as investigation?
We do all of that, actually.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Yeah. And especially with having the DVR system, that's one of the reasons why we have it, is because, that way then we can be investigating let's say we're investigating the outside, right? Because activity doesn't just happen inside of a building. It also happens on the ground.
Correct.
And the spirits are going to go wherever they want to go. And just because we're outside, they could be inside.
Yeah.
And so by having that voice recorder sitting there with a handheld camera or with the DVR system running, while we go and investigate elsewhere, then we're able to, hey, let's go back through the DVR real quick, take 10, 15 minutes and just kind of like fast forward through the evidence and see if there's anything that pops up. Or we'll play back the voice recorder and see, if anything gets called on the voice recorder.
Yeah.
Because you can even like be investigating outside and have the voice recorder running in a room inside and get responses to what you said outside, inside.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And so now tell me about, I have to know, tell me about a time you hit the voice recorder and you heard what? That kind of went, whoa, that's a good one.
Oh my gosh, so many of them.
Okay, so give me like your top two, like,
Oh, I mean, you hear like the typical good outs or what, or like get outs and all of those, you know what I mean?
Mm.
I was doing, it's always like interesting when you hear like your own name, like clear as
Wow.
day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh.
Like that's
Ooh,
like, oh,
chills.
okay. Yeah. Gosh, let's see. I remember one time I was we're up at Octagon Hall in Franklin, Kentucky. I was up in the attic and I didn't hear anything like audibly while it was up there. But when I went back and listened to my voice recorder, like I remember getting really uncomfortable feeling, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the attic by myself. Let's throw her up there.
Mm.
And I remember just being really uncomfortable and like
Yeah,
calling
yeah,
out for
yeah.
Samantha. And I'm like, I feel like I want to like get down. And I remember listening back on the voice recorder saying, I feel like I'm really scared right now. And then the
Yeah.
next thing you hear is a whisper that was like really close to me saying like, hello. And I was
Oh,
like, oh my God.
oh,
That's why I
yeah,
wanted to get out. There was something like right beside me.
yeah,
That was one of my first investigations. So,
yeah.
I was fairly new.
So, is there any place you wouldn't start? Because I know some people are like basement, forget it. Attic, no way. Are you just one of those people? Let's go to the basement because the basement, as you know,
Hmm.
typically has a lot of negative energy in it for
Yeah,
whatever reason,
they can.
right? So,
Hmm.
can you elaborate on maybe times you've been, like you said, the attic? Have you been in other rooms that you heard a voice or something that kind of spooked you that like, whoa, that affected me?
I remember one time I was at the old funeral home in Lynchburg, Tennessee, and actually me and all the
Mhm.
girls were.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were doing just like a little Estes net, or not Estes, or just a EVP session, up in the room. And I was doing a method called live EVP.
Hmm.
Live EVP is where you have the headphones in while the voice recorder is running. So everything that you hear is amplified.
Oh,
So you're able to hear
okay.
like sounds and noises that everybody else is not allowed, like they can't hear because it's not amplified to them. So I was on live EVP and like we're sitting there, like I said, just doing the EVP session. And I heard a hello and I was like, oh my God. And everybody else was like, what did you just hear that? And it was so clear, like a class A EVP.
Mm-hmm.
So clear. Sorry.
Oh, good.
No, sorry. I have a child. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so it was like a class A EVP. And the fact like I heard it so loud and then they heard it too was like really cool because
Mm.
that is one of the very few times like when that happens, that's like that awesome evidence that like not
Mhm.
everybody gets all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so cool when that happens, but it kind of freaks you out a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. I definitely can see that because it's something I've never been on a paranormal investigation, but I've been in shut-ins. So, I've been at like a theater in Chicago where unfortunately there was a little girl fell off the balcony and died. There was a fire.
No.
People were trampled to death.
Yeah.
There were stars who hung themselves in the back because of whatever reason. They thought maybe this was their break and it didn't turn out for them, and they, you know what I mean. And it's just really
Yeah.
dark. I didn't see anything except for one lady, and I'll never forget this. I've told this story before. It was about 3 or 4 in the morning, and we heard this blood curdling scream
Oh,
from this
wow.
woman. We're like, because we're all sitting around, and you're with paranormal investigators, by the way, who walk you through, and they're generous enough to,
Yeah.
use your equipment. And so we go running over there, and we're like, what happened? And she said she saw this little girl in front of her, and looked very real. And she thought somebody's little girl had got in, like snuck in.
Oh, wow.
It was like she thought that it looked that real. And the girl turned around and her eyes were just black as midnight.
Oh my gosh.
And she screamed, the woman screamed, and she disappeared. And
Yeah.
then paranormal investigators went over there and they were kind of trying to get some, see if they could get some, any residual, maybe information, voice or something. They tried talking to the little girl. They couldn't get anything, but they were like, okay, we're going to, they were very nice and were like, okay, let's calm down. They saged her. They did their blessings on her and everything like that. And I just was just like, yeah, I screamed too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that to me is really interesting. So do you have a favorite investigation?
A favorite investigation. Oh, gosh. So many good ones.
Okay. I love
Both
it.
times that I've been to Scott County Jail have been just
Jail.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the jails.
Really?
Yes, I do.
That's
I
crazy,
love a good
Chinelle.
jail.
That's crazy, Chinelle.
Yep, I do. I love a good jail. So I've been to multiple of them. There's
Okay.
something about the jails that I'm just kind of drawn to. And I don't know if it's the fact that like I'm a woman. And so when we looked at like the older jails, there weren't as many females in those jails. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I don't know if it's that, but yeah,
What
anytime like I've been,
experiences have you had in there?
oh,
Maybe
well,
give me a
let's
couple.
see. The only time I've ever been attacked was in a jail.
Oh, oh boy.
That was in the old Moore County Jail in Lynchburg, Tennessee, which me and my team are going back to next month. Actually, May
Oh,
3rd we'll be there.
oh,
And
okay.
that'll be like the fourth or fifth time that we've been there because we just love that. Both those locations in Lynchburg
Yeah,
are awesome.
yeah.
And let's see. So I've been to the Old Stone Jail in Franklin, Kentucky multiple times as well. The last time we were there, we got the coolest corroborating evidence
Okay.
using a spirit box.
And what happened?
Okay, so it was just me, Rachel, and Raina. And we're doing a little spirit box session. In the spirit box, they use like the radio, and then like the theory behind it is through the white noise is where you
Mhm.
get the spirits that come through.
Sure.
And so we are asking a whole bunch of things. So we got like the name Mary, we got murder, we got just all kinds of things. So we're asking like, were you in here for murder? Well, yeah, I was in here,
Okay.
for murder. And so the Simpson County Historical Society and the Old Stone Jail, they're both the same location. Well, they're across the street from each other, but the
Mhm.
archives are in there. And this is Simpson County, Kentucky. And so we're looking in the archives books and we're like, okay,
Mhm.
let's see if we can
Mhm.
find something. And so we found a gentleman of the name of, it looks like P.W. Alderman
Okay.
or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was in prison in the Old Stone Jail in the early 1900s for murder of his neighbor.
Mhm.
His wife's name was Mary. And when she died, she got like sick or something. And
Mhm.
so they brought her body to the jail so
Yeah.
he could say like his final goodbyes.
Okay.
And it was just the coolest thing to get all of that corroborating
Whoa.
evidence out of the spirit box. And we were just so excited. Like
Yeah.
I actually have all of the papers over on my desk because Billy Wilkerson, he's the gentleman that like runs the historical society up there. He went in and then he pulled all of the articles that he had, and we were just like floored to be able to find this like type of evidence because it's so hard to find corroborating evidence like that.
Yeah. That is amazing. So have you ever, or we're going to talk about this a little bit later,
Mm-hmm.
before we wrap up with Chanel, some of the bucket list places maybe her and her
Yeah.
team would love to go to. So I'm going to start out. I'm going to do a little teaser for our audience. So are you familiar with Missouri State Penitentiary?
Yes, I am.
100 acres of blood. That's what they
Yeah.
called it. That's how bad it was. Blech, right?
Yeah, Missouri State. So we actually were considering going to Missouri State this year, like on a collaboration with a couple other teams.
Yes.
And that might still be a thing. So I'm waiting. So yeah,
And then
maybe that would be so cool.
you darn right it would be. I've talked to paranormal investigators who have been there. You always
Hmm.
get something. Always. Like
Yeah.
there's never, never, ever, ever a time you don't get anything. I did a episode on that with one of my spooky friends, and it was really
Hmm.
interesting. It's crazy. Then Ohio State Reformatory, which is
Yes.
actually
OSR.
AKA Shawshank, which
Yes.
they do a tour. So yeah, that's another one,
Yes, for sure.
But
Would love to do both of those,
yeah.
actually.
So let me back up here, and I say this with all due respect. One of the things I'm finding out from paranormal investigators, especially female
Hmm.
paranormal investigators, is you are typically, not all the time, but typically the subject of attacks.
Yes.
Being that the majority of these spirits were men, and they probably did some nasty things in
Hmm.
their past lives, and they see an attractive woman like yourself, an attractive woman on your team, and think, here's my time to do
Yeah.
something. So you said you were attacked in prison.
Hmm.
What happened? Can you kind of
Um,
describe that for people?
yeah, I can tell you about it. So we were in, like I said, the Moore County Jail, the old Moore County Jail in Lynchburg, Tennessee. And there's a gentleman by the name of what they've dubbed Mr. Nasty.
Mm.
And Samantha, this is our first time being there.
Mhm.
And Samantha said to me, she was like, there's something about jail cell number 4. And we didn't know any history at
Mhm.
this point in
Mhm.
time. She's like, I'm just drawn to like the number 4, like there's something. And so then at that time, Ronnie Headley, he was the one that ran the investigations there, and he's telling us about Mr. Nasty and his jail cell number 4. And Sam's like, see,
Yeah.
I told you. And so she and I get to investigating. And so we have a rule, and honestly, this is where I did myself dirty that day. I did myself
Mm-mm.
dirty 2 ways. Number
Mm-mm.
one,
Not
I
good,
didn't
Chinelle.
have my protection on.
Uh-oh.
Yep, I didn't have my crystals on. Yeah, because of that, I have never investigated since without having my crystals on my person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was number one, how I messed up. Number two, how I messed up is we have a no provocation rule, like no heavy provocation. And if
Yeah.
if you start to feel like angry or you start to feel off, we need to get you out of the jail. Well, I didn't listen to myself. I know
Oh
better.
boy.
Yeah,
Chanel, shame
I
on you.
know. I know.
Come on.
And so I was Samantha had said to me, she's like, I think I'm starting to feel like I want to like provoke a little. And I'm like, I'm feeling something. Like I was feeling I had my sassy pants on, right? And I
Mm.
shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, sassy pants. Got it.
Yep. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like taunting and I'm like, what do you think about 2 women being in your jail cell and
Uh-huh.
things like that. No, Tim, don't
Ooh.
recommend doing that there.
Yeah,
Not
Chanel.
gonna end
No.
up good for you. But yeah, so then like I said, Sam and I were investigating and all of a sudden I started to feel like that I really couldn't breathe.
Mm.
And Sam and I were so in tune with each other that she's like, something's wrong. And I'm like, that's not good. And then I wasn't about a minute later.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't breathe. And then I had went into, after I got out of the building and was able to regulate my breath, we went in and I had like marks all on like my chest and all on my,
Oh. Oh no. Oh.
yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. So that leads me to, you talked about you've brought a spirit home, or one of your team
Mhm.
members have. Talk a little bit about that and what happened.
So we were at a location that's no longer a location anymore. It was up in Central City, Kentucky, I think. Maybe. Yeah, Central City, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And while we were there, so that location back in the day previously was like a brothel and all kinds of things. Well, there was reportedly a doctor there who did some, I don't even know how to say this.
Kids, take off your headphones if you're listening. That's what I have to
Yep.
say.
Would, if the ladies of the night end up pregnant,
Uh-huh.
did some procedures. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So there's a theory, or like that's like part of the history is that there was a doctor there that was doing those.
Mm,
And so we went up there, we did the investigation. It was a pretty cool location.
mm,
We get home and like the entire drive back to Murfreesboro, and it's like 3.5 hours.
mm.
So I was looking in my back seat because it felt like somebody was in the back seat. And, I just chalked it up to I was tired. I didn't have, had just investigated all the things, right?
Right.
So I get home and like I said, the entire drive, I keep looking in my backseat.
Mm,
And I finally get home, go to bed, whatever. And it was a couple days later where at that time, this is back in 2018. So my daughter would have been, she's 10 now, so 4.
Mm.
I remember I was making dinner and in the corner of my eye, I saw a child.
Ooh.
I had chicken up on the counter and, I was looking and like in the corner of my eye, I saw a child reach up for the chicken. And I thought it was my child,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
daughter.
yeah.
And I turned around and looked and she wasn't there.
Ooh.
And I was like, that was not my child. That was another child. And really, like, it looks like a little blonde boy.
Huh.
Yeah. And, like Riley has dark hair like I do, and
Yeah,
obviously she's a girl. But yeah, so I brought a little baby home with me that time.
Uh-huh.
Little toddler home with me from that location.
Yeah,
Which that explained why I was looking at my back seat the whole time because it felt like somebody was in my back
yeah.
seat.
Right, right. And how did you eventually, or maybe not, got rid of the ghost toddler?
Once I realized what it was, the next time that I was home alone, I was basically like, look, I know you came home with me. And I think that children's spirits are drawn to women, like
Yeah,
especially mothers. I feel that.
yeah.
And I just kind of told him, like, look, baby, I know you came home with me because I make you feel comfortable,
Mm,
but you got to go. Got to go
mm,
back where you came from. You can't stay here. So,
mm.
and I didn't see him again after that. But I
Oh,
really feel like, though, that was just it. Like, he could tell that I was, a
yeah,
protector, a nurturer, a mom.
yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so
That,
that's why he wanted to come
and,
home with me.
yeah, you see mommy, and you're like, hey, okay, there's mommy. I
Yeah.
want to go home with her. One of the things too is, have you ever had a evil spirit go home with one of your team members, or you think was evil?
Well, that same investigation, actually, where I brought home the child, I'm pretty sure Samantha took home an attachment.
Ooh,
We have a rule on our team now that you're not allowed to astral project during an investigation
good
because
rule.
Samantha, yeah, you can't leave the shell empty here.
Yeah.
But Samantha had actually projected during that, and
Ooh.
for the next couple of months, her life was pretty rough. After that investigation, she just went through a whole lot of things. She lost her job. She had to get a new car. And we were talking about it. And it was a couple months later talking about like just how like everything had just been not going so well for her.
Yeah.
And I was like, Samantha, I was like, do you think you got an attachment like
Mm,
from that location? And like
sure.
we put 2 and 2 together and we're like, oh my gosh. So, I've granted now she's much better. This was years ago, but yeah, like I'm pretty sure that she got an
Yeah.
attachment and she
Yeah.
just had a rough couple of months after that.
Oh, I bet. And with that, I imagine you sage, you do maybe
Mhm.
what to get rid of that spirit to help her.
Well, she went through and she, of course, like you said, did the sage. She took a very cleansing bath, just kind of like willed it away essentially, because a lot of when you get attachments and things like that, a lot of times, like if you just take ownership and you just don't
Hmm.
let it have the power,
Correct.
and you take the power from it, once you realize what's going on and it's like, oh, okay, no, you need to leave me alone.
Yeah.
Of course, there are times where that's not going to work. Sam was fortunate she didn't have to do that, but there are other people
Yeah.
that goes to instead of attachment, full blown possession.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, do you guys ever has anyone ever came to you, or does your team do this, saying, hey, Chinelle, could you and your team come to my house? I believe there's a spirit and it's hurting
Hmm.
me and my children. You guys take a look. Do you guys ever do that?
Yeah, we take a look, but we're not going to go in their house. And this is
Okay.
something that I've actually gotten a little bit of controversy over.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, well, because like we don't do residentials in the fact of going in their homes and investigating their homes. We feel that it's unethical.
Hmm.
Part of that is my background in psychology that I have, and I'm a social worker by day.
Oh, okay.
So when people contact us and they need help, we don't just ignore them, and that's what I think a lot of people think
Yeah.
that we do.
Right.
I don't do that because that's unethical to me. Number one, as a
Hmm.
paranormal investigator. Number two, as a social worker, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I do is I talk to them. If they have any evidence, like I'll review it. But because we practice scientifically, science overrides paranormal. And this is just our opinions and our practices.
Sure.
We look at it that science overrides paranormal. So if it can be explained by something scientifically,
Yeah.
then we're going to go with that.
Yeah.
So every time that I've gotten a phone call or an email, or a Facebook message, like, yeah, let me see your evidence. All right, now we're going to have a phone call. Something that I actually do kind of on the side is
Sure.
I do a lot of psychological consultations for other teams when they get residentials, and I'll give my opinion.
Yeah.
And so just because I have the credentialing that I can do that.
Yeah.
And more often than, and I'm going to say 98% of the time, it's something mental. There's recent trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's untreated mental health like diagnoses.
Yeah.
There's just their life is currently in a shambles. They've had all kinds of things happen, and it's like, okay. Or my favorite one that I've gotten more often than not is untreated schizophrenia. Like, and it's like, okay, you need to go see your psychiatrist. And I always tell people, like, go get your mental health taken care of.
Yes.
Go see, go to your psychiatrist, go to a therapist, whatever, and then call me back in 3 months if you still have activity.
Yes.
And I also recently did a consultation for another team. It was a 2-year-old baby. And this gentleman sent me 14 videos, and I watched every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, is your child diagnosed with autism? And he's like, yeah, we're working on that. I said, yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, well, I can see the autism, because I work with kids that have autism, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, let me hook you up with some resources, because he was local here in Murfreesboro. I'm like, because this is not a paranormal. This is a child you're putting him to bed overstimulated, and that's why he's not sleeping. And he has an autism diagnosis. So that's how we help residentials. And the most recent residentials that I've gotten have all been, something along those lines. I needed to give them resources. So really I was doing more social work than I was paranormal, but I'm still going to do that every time.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That to me is a great way to do it. One of the things I said on one of my episodes is when I was having issues with my teenage daughter as her father, what was really weird, I had 2 incidents happen that I really believe was manifested by my daughter. And you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, which it's gone now, so which is great. Me and my daughter have a great relationship. So when my daughter's about 17, she was going through stuff, right? She's 17, right?
Yeah.
We've all been. So one thing, I was sitting downstairs in my man cave, and I heard this voice, Chinelle, right next to my ear go, John. It was a woman's voice. It's a John. Very quickly. I could hear it plain as day. I looked around. There's nobody in the room. Okay, whatever. Then I'm taking a nap on I have a little futon down there. I'm taking a nap. And I don't know if you ever do this to your husband, but maybe take your fingers and roll around his back, wake him up or something, like just be cute or cutesy. You know what I mean? That's what I felt. But I felt like someone was kind of like clawing, right? I thought it was my wife trying to wake me up. I said, hon, I'm really tired. Could you come back? And I'm, and I could feel something there. So I turn around, there's nothing there. Nothing.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I was like, okay, this is getting weird. So I talked to a medium friend of mine, and she said, well, John, what's going on in the house? Just like you said, what's going on in the house? And I said, well, my daughter and my wife, we're having some issues. She goes, okay. I think that's probably what you're experiencing right now. What I would do is just relax, talk to your daughter, go to seek some family therapy, see what you can do. So we did all that and nothing happened again. So I totally agree with you on that. And it was just really, really strange, that it happened. But being that I'm in the paranormal, I handled it intelligently. Then hey, Chinelle, you gotta get over here. I have people screaming in my ear and clawing my back. And, it wasn't nothing that severe, but
Yeah.
to that point. Yeah. So I
Well,
totally
and
agree. I
we,
think that's awesome.
right. And we know that, like, when things are going on, that leaves us open to like spiritual attacks. So that's why
Right.
I give, just like that medium said, you go get some help and see if it goes away. I've said that multiple times. If it comes back, or like if
Yes.
the activity still continues, then at that point in time, we're going to take this a little further,
Right.
because that could indicate something else. But once you get like that, that
Mhm.
calmness back, essentially,
Yes.
or that regulation,
Yeah.
then your activity is probably going to go away.
Yeah. So let's move. I love everything there. One thing I love to do is have. I was going to ask you about the types of ghosts you guys have seen, but I think I'm going to wait if you guys want to come back on the show and have your
Yeah.
team, and we can go through all the different ghosts you maybe have seen. So I'm
Yeah.
going to skip that, but I'm going to get to my fun part, and that is a bucket list of places you would like to see. Chinelle and I were joking offline. I said, if I win the lottery, I'm going to give Chinelle and her team all the money and resources she needs to go to any place in the world and check it out. So I'm going to do mine first. And you tell me, Chinelle, if you know any of these areas or if you would like to go. This is
Yeah.
Midwest, and I've done episodes on this, so I'm very
Okay.
familiar. We've already talked about a couple. So, but the first one is one of my favorites. I swear to God, I got to get a team to come with me, or a number of paranormal teams. Have you ever heard of the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Illinois?
I have not.
Okay. So, very, very, very quickly. So, Bachelor's Grove is a cemetery full of bachelors. It was built in 1800s, early 1800s, and these bachelors, for whatever reason, said women stink. They have cooties. I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on, and they built their own town called Bachelor's Grove. So it's a bunch of bachelors until like every man goes, I need a woman. Oh, you need a woman. Let's figure this out. But they have a cemetery there. Unfortunately, and this is an interesting part you have to think about, because they desecrated kids, vandals, whoever have desecrated the cemetery. They have broken tombstones. They have done satanic rituals. They have done. Imagine every terrible thing you could do in a cemetery. This cemetery has had done. So there's a ghost of a woman. You can go on my Instagram page and see it, of a woman who lost her baby, and for whatever reason, the baby was buried there. So there is a picture from a paranormal investigator of a woman sitting on this bench near this grave marker. And it's an amazing picture. Again, I don't know if it's photoshopped or whatever, but it's an amazing picture of a mother looking like she's sad. She lost her baby. Why the baby's there? Who knows? Also, there is a little pond there where it's one of those crappy muddy ponds where you shouldn't be fishing at. But back in the day, this horse and carriage, this man was trying to get through, 1800s, trying to get to wherever. Him and his horse drowned in that little pond. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So you can hear screams of the man and the horse, struggling to survive. And it's really spooky. And then, like I said, paranormal investigators who have been in here have caught EVPs. You can go online, you can look at them. It's a crazy place because it's like in the middle of this town, like there's like a strip mall, right? And there's a highway or a freeway, and then there's this cemetery. It's just, it doesn't make
random
sense.
cemetery.
Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense why it's there. So that's something to think about. Like I said, I did an episode on it. It's super spooky, super full of negative energy. So you got to really watch it. If you were to go to it, you're a professional, you'd be fine. But any of my spooky friends out there, please do not go to it and try to be stupid and desecrate anything there. You just make it think worse. The next one is a Valeska axe murder house. Have you heard of that one? Yeah.
Yes. I would love to go to Valeska and go check that out.
They still haven't solved the crime. It's been, I think, 100 years now, maybe over 100 years. They still haven't solved the crime. Remember, they killed the entire family, including babies.
Yeah.
How twisted,
so
right? That's so no
sad.
wonder, right? No wonder there's negative energy in there. By the way, if you would go to it with you and your team, know that if you go to I have a ton of family in Iowa. if you go to it, just know, Chinelle, that if you go to like a cafe or the diner to
Mm-hmm.
get something to eat, people will turn to you and say, "Oh no, Villisca Axe Murder House, huh?" Because that's the only draw. It's a small
Yeah.
town, like a small town in Kentucky or Tennessee, like where
Yeah.
people, you walk in the door and they don't know you, like, "Oh, you're here for the,
You're here for
you know,
that.
right?"
Yep.
And then we already talked about Ohio State
Mm-hmm.
Reformatory, Missouri State Penitentiary. Have you heard about the Lemp Family Mansion?
Yes. Lemp Mansion in Missouri.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that
Yep.
one,
I'd love to go there.
that one is really interesting. I did an episode on that too. What's funny about it is they tried to turn the bottom of it into a restaurant, and all these paranormal things happen.
Right. Things happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people quit left and right, and some waiters or waitresses who have been there for a while, like, just like you said, "Oh, being in your haunted house, there goes the glass floating across
Yeah.
the, oh, here comes whatever." There is something funny that I will recommend to you that you might see. So one of the Lemp family members was I'll just be honest, a pervert. And so when women go into the bathroom to go to the bathroom, they tend to see a ghost peeking over the
Taking
stall,
over. Yep.
trying to get over. So I don't know if that's ever happened to one of your team, but there you go.
I mean, they just, they get a little amorous even in their afterlife.
Yeah. I had a paranormal investigator. She said that she laid down on a bed just to kind of get some more energy or vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this, and I was kid, Erin, she's from Patriot Paranormal. We're good spooky friends. And she says, like, there's this, she's like you, she got the feeling it's a man, and she got the name Pedro. And this guy was, let's just say he's a little handsy. Let's just say that. So, it's bad, but it's also kind of like, okay, like, stop it, Pedro. Like, back off. So, those were some of mine in the Midwest. Have you thought of any, Chinelle, that your team would like to go to? Anything off the top of your head? Because I can make some suggestions. If you can't figure it, I don't have one.
Yeah, the McIntyre Villa.
What's that? I haven't heard of that.
Okay, so that, oh my gosh, and I can't remember if it's in Indiana or Illinois. That's one, it's like the location is just beautiful. If you go onto like their Facebook page or whatever and just see, or even like a lot of teams have been there, that place is just gorgeous. It's so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Waverly Hills, we haven't been there yet.
Yep.
We're hoping to get there, maybe even this year. And then I would love, so being like staying like domestically, meaning in the United States, I would love to do like a tour of basically Ohio, Virginia, all the way up to like Massachusetts, and just hit like all of the big locations.
Especially
being from Pennsylvania,
right? Salem?
Yeah, Salem. Yeah, I've never been to Salem. I have been to Massachusetts and Maine, but I was a child. But yeah, so love to like basically start either in like West Virginia, then go to Ohio to like OSR. Start at like, what is that? What's the one in West Virginia? Trans-Allegheny?
Yes.
I think. Yeah, Trans-Allegheny, then go to OSR, then go over to Pennsylvania, hit up, Gettysburg, say hi to my family, then go to...
Nice.
Yeah, then go to Penthurst. I've already been to Eastern State Penitentiary. I went there years ago.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I've really got to dig those pictures out from when I went. They're up in my attic somewhere. But yeah, go to like, maybe like even like the Bates Motel, and then just go up through like to the one that's up in Wildwood Sanitarium in New York.
Yes.
And then end in like Salem.
Yes.
So, cool.
So I have a couple that, I think this is near you. Maybe I'm way off. My geography sucks, by the way. I'm sorry, Chinelle, if I'm way off. The Magnolia Plantation? Magnolia Plantation. Isn't that in New Orleans? Isn't that
something? I was going to say Louisiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where
so that's that.
Yeah. That's the one where the slave woman, you can see her because she I think she poisoned the family. I believe and it's supposed to be a ton. It's a huge plantation.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be gorgeous. A lot of crazy stuff that goes on.
Yeah, I would also love to do the Myrtles plantation,
The
like
Myrtles
going south.
plantation. Yeah.
Yep, Myrtles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be beautiful and just, I mean, that place, it's just gorgeous. And
Yeah.
I would love to be able to investigate there one day.
Yeah. How about the Whaley House? I think that's in. Is that near
Oh,
too?
one of my girls just went there. It's in California.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Rachel's from California. And she went to California. She went back home just to go visit like some friends and some family for like a weekend trip. And she went to the Whaley House
Nice.
while she was
Nice.
there to do a little tour.
Nice. That also, when I was in California on business, I saw the Winchester Mansion.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she went to Winchester too.
It's really weird because you're like driving, like I was driving to meet a client. I'm like driving, and then I'm like, Winchester Mansion, I think it's around here. And I put it in my GPS, and then it's like this house, like in the middle of this business district, for lack of a better word. It's just weird. It's like you're driving. Oh, that's the Winchester Mansion. And I definitely want to go there. Let me ask you this. We wrap up here. How about the Lizzie Borden house?
I mean, I would not be opposed to it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of easy to please because the only place, and now granted, things are a little different with this place right now, but that I've like always never really felt called to, or like that I'm not supposed to go, is Bobby Mackey's.
Now you heard what's happened to Bobby Mackey's, right?
Yeah. They've turned it down and they're like rebuilding it.
Yeah.
But prior to that, well, and even still, because once again, I think that ghosts can sometimes be attached to the land. I don't. Yeah, every time that, like, even talking about it, like right now, like you see how fidgety I get. Like I get so uncomfortable talking about it, seeing pictures of it, anything like that. Like I am not supposed to go to Bobby Mackey's, and so like when my team and I talk about it, I'm like, you guys can go. I'm going to be right here in Tennessee, and y'all have fun, and I'll support and do all the things. Down here in Tennessee.
You'll be at ground base 0.
I will. Yes. You can live stream the DVR and I'll sit here and I'll just watch it on YouTube, like whatever you need me to do. But I'm not going into that place.
So speaking of the Civil War, it's really quick. My mom loved the Civil War. She'd been to Gettysburg 3 times. That's how much she loved it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget what she told me. She was walking around. She got to an area in part of the battle site where some of the bloodiest fighting happened. And my mom, who's into the paranormal too, she told me, she said, honey, I didn't hear birds chirping. I didn't hear voices. I didn't hear the cars. I heard nothing. It was dead silence. And my mom was like, I gotta leave. And she just walked right out of there. She was there for like 2 minutes and like, nope, I'm up.
Yeah, that's the thing about Gettysburg, is that it absolutely is like dead silent. Like you get out there, and because I mean, like growing up in, like I grew up in York, so the next county over, you know what I mean? I grew up going to the battlefield, and I love going to the battlefield to this day. And so anytime that like I drive up to Pennsylvania, most often I drive through Gettysburg. So yeah, your mom's right. It's dead silent. Like it can be the middle of the afternoon and it is so quiet. And like even being here in Murfreesboro, so like I live 5 minutes from the Stones River battlefield. And it's not even as solemn as Gettysburg is.
Wow.
Like there's just something about Gettysburg that it's just it's special. Gettysburg's special.
It is, definitely. So one international thing, I've always said this many, many times, I'd love to get to, is the unfortunate name of it, the Suicide Forest in Japan.
In Japan,
Definitely want to check that out. I've had some of my paranormal investigators have been to Japan. They have not gone to it because they said they just felt strange, like going to it. Because if you know anything about it, is there people who go there to end their life, which is really sad. Yeah. And you might.
And I look at it. Yeah. And I talked about this recently. So I'm a little bit of like Japanese kind of nerd.
There you go.
It's like the country of Japan just has like really enthralled me in like the last 20 years. And it's Japan and the United Kingdom are the two like other countries that I've like want to
Yeah.
go visit.
Yeah.
And so like when you look at the suicide forest, it's when people go there to die, it's more like ritualistic.
Correct.
And so their culture around that is different than ours.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I don't look at it as so sad per se.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as, you know what? They felt that that's what they had to do to like make amends or however that looks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I just kind of view it just a little bit differently. So I would love to go there.
Yeah, there we go. We got to get a trip together. I got to get on my
Let's go.
paranormal
Let's do it. We'll go to
spooky
Japan.
friends. Let's go. Come on.
Yep. I got to go get a new passport. Let's go.
Excellent. So before we wrap up, anything else for your bucket list, just really quickly?
Oh, yeah. I want to go and explore every single abandoned and not abandoned castle in the United Kingdom. And I'd love to go to Transylvania. Yeah.
That's hilarious because
Yeah.
I've said that so many times. Chinelle, we're on the wavelength together.
We
here.
are. Absolutely.
It's actually, I mean, come on, Hollywood built it up as spooky and rainy all the time. No, it's absolutely gorgeous.
It's a absolutely beautiful country.
Go look at pictures on Google, My Spooky Friends, and you're like, really? My God, that's really pretty.
Yeah, seeing that castle, I mean, like the pictures of the castle are just like, oh my God, just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So pretty. I love it.
Right. And, you know, Vlad's castle, Dracula's castle, whatever. Done. No, boy, this is going to take a year.
Yeah. I mean, but you said that you won the lottery. So.
Yeah, no problem.
Got all the time.
I definitely would do that. So, wrapping up here, tell my spooky friends what you got for Elite Vixen and your team, what's coming up, what can they look forward to?
Yeah. So we have next weekend, we're actually going to be investigating the Oksana Victorian house in Alabama. Right. So we'll be live streaming that. We'll probably be live on TikTok, maybe Facebook. And then we have May 18th, Elite Vixen Paranormal and another team, Reflections of the Paranormal. We're hosting a paranormal meet and greet. It's called Paranormal Places at the Old Stone Jail in Franklin, Kentucky. We still have tickets available for that. We have a lot of amazing location directors that run the paranormal investigations and the tours. They're coming to speak about the locations. Oh. So we have representatives from Octagon Hall, Scott County Jail, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, Old Harriman Hospital, the Old Stone Jail, the Old Moore County Jail, and then Lynchburg's Haunted Home. Just an amazing lineup of people coming to just talk about their locations. Plus we have vendors, and then we did sell out of our VIP tickets. That includes the 2-location investigation of the Old Stone Jail and the Simpson County Historical Society. But we have meet and greet tickets available.
Yay!
Still. So those are $30 each, and you can find those if you go to our Facebook page, which is, you just search Elite Vixen Paranormal on anything and you're going to find us. You can find the ticket links for that. Also, we have a charity event coming July 6th. Now that's also sold out. Nice. Every year, but we'll probably be streaming on, some of the investigation, and that's at the Thomas House Hotel in Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee. And that's July 6th. So that's what we got coming up soon.
That is awesome. I absolutely love that because you guys do so many great things, and thank you for taking time out to be on the podcast. And hopefully I can have you back on to ask about the type of ghosts and more of your investigations with your team, or some of your team would be awesome. But thank you again. Like I said, I love it. You had such great stories. That's why I love paranormal investigators. Yeah. Now we just got to figure out how I could win the lottery. And
exactly.
Get the Transylvania, Japan, and all the things. Take a tour, get our own little jet. We're perfect.
Absolutely. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
All right. So to my spooky friends, if you want to see our smiling faces, me and Chinelle, you got to go to my Patreon page. Otherwise, this episode will be out soon. and you can listen to it then. But go to my Patreon page. Give me a little love, give Chinelle a little love with her group. It always helps us, right? Because we're doing this out of the love of the paranormal and hopefully, give that back to people. So before I end, I always say two things, and your house is haunted, so it's pretty easy. Is say hi to your ghost. So hello, ghost, because we're being nice, and then stay spooky. Thanks, Chinelle.
All right. Thank you so
Love
much.
you. Tell you later.
All right.
Bye bye.
Yep. Bye.